I would want to thank you very much for that very kind introduction. My wife, Nan, and I are very happy to be here. And in that short period, I've met some old friends. Ambassador Ashby dropped by with his wife to say hello, and it was good to see them. But let me say that I'm here really to talk to you about the Global Compact. And it is wonderful to be talking about Global Compact in the setting of the Gulen Institute, given the philosophy, the vision of Mr. Gülen and what he's trying to do. Obviously, the last 2 decades have been very tumultuous, and we've seen quite a lot of changes in our world. We've seen in the last decade, last 2 decades, the Cold War ended. We saw the US as a dominant country in the world. In the meantime, we saw the rise of China, India, developments in Brazil and South Africa, or what we call the emergent countries, coming to the fore, who will demand to play their own role and make a contribution. We also realize that today we live in such an interdependent world, and there are problems confronting us that no one country, however powerful, can solve alone, and that we need to work together across borders to make this world a safer planet for us all. And of course, today all governments realize that there are issues they cannot solve alone. Even the issue of international relations and diplomacy, people-to-people contacts today play a very important part of that relationship. I have seen ordinary citizens, businessmen, professors, and others crisscrossing the world, establishing relationships that leads to better understanding between their respective countries. And so any government that doesn't recognize the role of other stakeholders, and this is just putting his head in the sand. Let me also say that we are today also confronted with one of the most important crises humanity has ever faced, the climate change. Climate change is an all-encompassing threat. It is a threat to our health, threat to security, threat to clean water, threat to security in the sense that people will fight over limited resources. And yet, when we went to Copenhagen, I'm not sure we did all that we could to find a solution. We now have up till December in Mexico to try and find a solution. Whether we will find it or not, I do not know. But the global economic crisis, which Melissa referred to earlier, has proven to all of us that we live in the same world, and what happens in one country will have impact on the other. We in Africa thought we were so isolated from the international economic issues that the crisis may bypass Africa, but Africa was also hit. And as we talk of reforming the global economic and financial system, I think it is important that we realize that solidarity and fairness, which even Adam Smith himself spoke about when he wrote his thesis on 250 years ago on moral sentiments, talked about the need for solidarity, prudence, and public spiritedness, and solidarity. And I think any arrangement, any system that comes out of the crisis that does not factor in the needs of the poor is not going to be sustainable. It was also with this same spirit of looking ahead as to how we aid the poor that in the year 2000, world leaders came to New York and signed up on a declaration pledging to their people and to the global community and to each other that there is collective responsibility to uphold the principles of human dignity, equality, and equity at the global level. Embodied in that declaration was a recognition that fundamental and common values are essential to international relations in the 21st century. Values such as freedom, equality, solidarity, tolerance, respect for nature and the environment, and the shared responsibility for humankind. As you can see, it doesn't stray too far away from the man whose name is on the board here. Born from the Millennium Declaration also were the Millennium Development Goals. And as we heard from Madam President, these were the 8 goals which created an action plan for development and for the first time provided the world with time-bound, that is 2000 to 2015, quantifiable and measurable targets for development. These goals, agreed by the world leaders, were aimed at the reduction of poverty and hunger, the achievement of universal primary education, particularly the young girls, the promotion of gender equality, the improvement of global health, and ensuring sustainable development under a framework of international cooperation. And so for the first time, we had a common framework for development, a framework that could be understood by any man or woman, whether he's in Bogota or in Accra or Cape Town. Together, the Millennium Declaration and the goals embodied the nation that both nations and societies